Welcome back to An Acquired Taste. Today I want to talk about our inability to understand or unwillingness to understand why we win deals in sales. There's a weird psychology, I guess it's psychology, where we have no problem talking about sales we lost, deals we lost, things we didn't win. We can talk about how the product didn't have this feature, or maybe I didn't have the right person on the phone, or they got skittish, or that person left or got fired, or we missed some other window of opportunity, or just flat out we were unlucky. In every organization with a sales function that I've been a part of, that's pretty normal that people are willing to do that and talk through the losses. But we're really bad and inconsistent, at minimum inconsistent, at talking about why we won deals. And again, this might just be the psychology of avoiding losses. Like we immediately go to, well, I have to explain why I lost this, or I have to justify why we lost or didn't win, which is, I guess, saying the same thing. And it's basic human nature. We want to understand. We want to avoid it in the future. And so I think the rational response, honestly, is understanding why you lost it as an avoidance technique. So I don't do that again. But the problem is the flip side of that coin. If I don't understand when I win why I won that, how do I replicate what allowed me to win that deal? Well, the short answer is you can't, because you don't do it. You don't engage in that exercise. So you aren't learning from that maybe in the same way that you could. And so I would argue that understanding why you won is far more important than why you lost a deal. And let me take a step back. When we are doing some sort of recap or review or post-mortem, whatever you want to call it, when we lose a deal, there's a ton of speculation that goes in there. We allow ourselves to game theory it out and say, well, maybe this happened, and I never really liked that person, or I don't think they really liked me. I think we were always playing from behind. There's a lot of supposition, and we can all understand that's of minimal value. It might be distracting. It might actually be counter intuitive. It might be counterproductive for sure. And the other reason that I think it's important that you focus on the winning side is because outside of that supposition, outside of all of that kind of avoidance of loss, all the things that go in there, you also can lose deals on a lot of factors that are completely out of your control. Valid reasons to lose a deal, and not something that anybody should feel quote unquote responsible for. And so understanding, the person that was reviewing your contract left and didn't pass it on to the next person. I don't know what you're supposed to do about that. And I don't know what you're supposed to learn from that you could apply in the future that would help you have changed that outcome. And my guess is that if you looked at every sale you lost over the last 12 months, 40%, this is just Matt Hoddle math, not based on any statistic reality, just my own experience, but around 40% of those deals were lost to factors outside of your control. And you're not going to learn anything from that. What's the takeaway? Be less unlucky. Don't talk to somebody who might leave. Don't sell against a competitor who comes out with a new compelling feature set. I just don't know what you're going to gain from that. But if you're spending your time figuring out why you won each deal, you're going to start to see patterns and similarities among those wins. Whether that's in a particular set of benefits you shared, your general approach, the cadence of the sales process, how it progressed, how quickly or how slowly or how moderately quickly it progressed. Even the objections that you overcame are going to start to have a feeling to them. And those are going to be based on, what are your competitors doing? What is the market doing? Those reactions to those objections, successful reactions and successful overcoming of those objections, you're going to start to see a pattern. And when you have a pattern, that means you can replicate. That's the whole point of a pattern, is once you establish what that pattern is, you apply that, and then you can start replicating that. One of the stories I always think about as far as how people start to zone in on the wins is actually a story from my 20s. And it's a story about a jewelry store in Atlanta, Georgia. Well, I think they're all over actually, but they had a big presence in Atlanta, Georgia. It's called Shane and Company. So if you think about it, it was kind of the mid-tier, jewelry store. But it's where I bought my wife her engagement ring. And so very stressful when you're in your 20s and you're buying something that's the most expensive thing you've bought that wasn't a vehicle at the time, or wasn't paying off student loans. And I walked in there and I had a great experience. But the takeaway here is not about Shane Company. It's not about the engagement ring or anything like that. It's about what happened right after my credit card cleared for payment of that engagement ring. They asked me one question, and I'm going to date myself here very badly, but the one question was, what radio station do you listen to? Now, let me take a step back and explain why I'm even sharing that. So think about what they're asking and when they're asking it. What they're asking is really straightforward. What radio station do you listen to? Again, I'm dating myself here, but back then commercial radio was still a thing. Not everybody was listening to podcasts and Spotify and, XM, Sirius, whatever, books, audiobooks. People still listen to commercial radio, and commercial FM radio was, especially in Atlanta with as much traffic as they had, was still a big part of anybody's marketing strategy, especially retail. The bigger thing is when they ask that question. They didn't ask it when I walked through the door. They didn't ask it when I was looking at rings. They didn't ask it when I went up to the register. They asked after the transaction had closed. Because what they had realized sometime in the past, prior to that transaction, or anytime they started asking that, was what they really wanted to know is, where are the people who are buying listening to the radio? Who are they listening to on the radio? Because I want more people like this. So going back, how does this relate to this whole idea of why did we win a deal? Understand why you won a deal and understand those patterns. You can start to apply those to the population, your ideal customer profile, your ideal market for that product. Only when you start understanding, why did I get the last one? And how do I apply that to the future? You're building a profile. You're building a pattern. You're building these things to understand, how do I win again in the future, just like I won this time right now. You're going to find that you spend less time, morbidly reviewing those losses and feeling badly about them. And you're going to spend less time talking about sales outcomes when you start focusing on the wins, because what you're going to start to do is that pattern recognition. And those things are going to repeat themselves. And then you're going to go into these meetings and you're going to start talking about, well, it was just this case of we overcame these 3 core objections that we hear all the time. This is how we overcame them. This is the reaction. And that's why we won the deal. And so guess what happens? Everybody starts really understanding how to overcome those 3 objections in the successful way, and in the pattern, in the model that you've now proven is successful. So I hope that helps. Spend more time thinking about your wins than your losses. Really understand those wins and understand that winning more means losing less. Thanks very much. Hope you enjoyed it. Leave me your comments. We'll see you next time.